This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Layla Fadel.
I'm E. Martinez.
And I'm Michelle Martin.
Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC NewsHour on WNYC. Let's check in with London and see what they're working on. Hello, London.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm Rebecca Kesby, and on today's NewsHour, the head of Israeli military intelligence has resigned, taking responsibility for security failures on October the 7th. But why now? What impact will Good morning, WNYC. I'm Rebecca Kesby, and on today's NewsHour, the head of Israeli military intelligence has resigned, taking responsibility for security failures on October the 7th. But why now? What impact will Hindu nationalism have on the election and Milan's potential war on ice cream and pizza? That's BBC NewsHour coming up at 9 on WNYC.
48 and sunny right now, sunny and a high near 60 today. It's going to be a beautiful day. It's 8:51.
WNYC is supported by American Jewish World Service, standing with human rights advocates worldwide this Passover in the fight for democracy, equity, and justice for all people. Learn more and support at ajws.org.
For Earth Day, 1A asks how each presidential candidate is or isn't tackling climate. President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act is the largest climate investment in U.S. history. But right after its passage, the administration approved more oil drilling in Alaska. Under the Trump administration, the U.S. left the Paris Climate Agreement. Climate and the race for the White House, that's next time on 1A.
Weekdays at 3 on WNYC or live stream it at WNYC.org.
Where next for unions after VW workers in the South vote to join the UAW?
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Bitwarden, committed to making life and work less stressful and more secure with the Bitwarden Password Manager for Business. Learn more at bitwarden.com. And by C3 Generative AI, verified, traceable answers, secure, hallucination-free, LLM-agnostic, IP liability-free. Learn more at c3.ai.
I'm David Brancaccio in New York. We're following a landmark moment for the labor movement in the U.S. For the first time, auto workers at a foreign-owned plant in a southern state have voted to unionize. It was a landslide victory for the United Auto Workers at a Volkswagen of Germany plant in Tennessee. Marketplace's Nova Safo is here with more.
Yeah, David, it was, in fact, a big victory at that Chattanooga plant. 2,600 workers cast ballots in favor of joining the union. There were about 1,000 votes against. So that's quite a comfortable margin of victory, better than 2-1. And remarkable because when the UAW last tried 5 years ago, it didn't manage to crack 50% of the vote. But it's gotten an assist this year. The big pay raises and benefits the union won in negotiations last year with the Detroit Three, that's helped. The Detroit Three, of course, being GM, Ford, and Stellantis. At the VW plant in Tennessee, the workers are just getting started, of course. Now they begin negotiations for their first contract.
Now, during voting, Republican governors of 6 states in the South had issued a joint statement warning workers not to vote for the union, saying the move threatened jobs and, quote, the values we live by. Meanwhile, the UAW is already looking beyond VW. Where next?
Well, when it reached those deals with the Big Three, the union made no secret of the fact that it would be redoubling its efforts at southern plants. It's already launched another unionization campaign, this one in Alabama at Mercedes-Benz plants. That vote happens to be in the middle of the next month, and some analysts believe it will be a tougher fight. There are a lot of auto plants in the South, some 150,000 workers in all. Companies such as Toyota, Nissan, and BMW are located there. And the UAW has been trying for years to unionize those plants. It's faced a lot of resistance from those governors, typical political opposition, and also a lot of anti-union sentiment. Some of that resistance appears to be cracking now, David, but to what extent? Well, the vote next month in Alabama will give us a better picture.
Marketplace's Nova Safo, thank you. Let's check the numbers to start the week. We see Dow futures up 0.6%. S&P futures also up 0.6%, suggesting the index will move back above 5,000 this morning after the big dip on Friday, the first dunk below 5,000 since February. NASDAQ futures are up 0.7% right now. Bonds are down. The 10-year interest rate up slightly at 4.64%. Tesla, soon after telling employees it's planning to lay off 10% of them, is cutting the price by a third of what it's been calling its full self-driving system, $8,000 as an option now. It's called full self-driving, but it's unable to drive itself. There needs to be a person at the wheel, eyes on the road, hands at the ready. It's also cutting prices on 3 of 5 Tesla models. Quarterly results are due tomorrow afternoon.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Twilio Segment. Segment helps every team access good data that's real-time, clean, and accurate. The result is relevant customer experiences that drive real revenue. Learn more at segment.com. And by Palo Alto Networks. Palo Alto Networks delivers what's next in cybersecurity innovation to protect today's digital way of life. Learn more at paloaltonetworks.com.
The U.S. is home to 1.4 million people from El Salvador, a low-income Central American country with a population of 5 million in total. Using American Immigration Council numbers, Salvadorans in the U.S. often work physically demanding construction or, at number 2, janitorial jobs, especially in L.A., Washington, D.C., and Houston, where they have been longtime members of the organized labor scene. Marketplace's Elizabeth Troval reports.
It's early April, and hundreds of Houston area janitors are marching past skyscrapers downtown. There are Garifuna drummers from Honduras and a twist on a classic Chilean protest song. These Latin American workers are in the Service Employees International Union. In the crowd is Nuria Gomez de Gonzalez from El Salvador. She tells me they're fighting for better wages and benefits. She's been cleaning Houston offices for almost 20 years. Her pay was around $5 an hour when she started. Now it's a little over $13. She says she's gone to marches like this to advocate for better wages several times since local janitors won their first contract in 2006. She's one of more than 5,000 janitors in Houston from El Salvador. Salvadorans here make up roughly 10% of janitors, while being less than 3% of the workforce, according to the American Immigration Council. At a nearby park, Gomez de Gonzalez fills me in on how she ended up cleaning office buildings in Houston.
Viví mucha violencia doméstica.
Escaping an abusive ex in El Salvador, she came here looking for opportunities to support her children. She's been able to do that over the years with her right to work under temporary protected status. Immigrants like her come together to fight for better work conditions and pay to survive in this country, she says.
Andamos aquí luchando.
She and her husband, who's from Honduras, together take home about $3,000 a month. Most of that goes towards ever more expensive rent and groceries.
Todo va subiendo así de volada, todito va subiendo, Dios mío.
A lot of what's left over goes back home. Hundreds of dollars are sent to El Salvador each month on investments in property and helping family members. It's a huge economic engine for communities in El Salvador, says University of Michigan economist Dean Young.
The remittances that migrants send back do go directly first to the households that they originally came from. But that money spreads out in the community via, multipliers.
In other words, the working class wages people like Gomez de Gonzalez are fighting to increase don't just improve the lives of Salvadorans in the U.S. They're also a pillar of the Salvadoran economy. In Houston, I'm Elizabeth Troval for Marketplace.
Tomorrow here, we'll have a report from El Salvador itself on moves to make the country safer and to help energize its struggling economy. In New York, I'm David Brancaccio. It's the Marketplace Morning Report. From 8 p.m., American Public Media.